My family humiliated me, then they learned who I really was. The worst part wasn't when my mother told everyone I was a failure. It wasn't when my brother laughed and called me the family embarrassment. And it wasn't even when my father asked me to leave the dinner table because, according to him, I was making the family look bad. The worst part, they did all of it in front of the one person who could have changed their lives forever. And they had absolutely no idea who I was. My name is Ethan Carter. And for most of my family, I was the son who never amounted to anything. At least, that's what I let them believe. For years, my family compared me to my older brother, Daniel. Daniel was everything they wanted in a son. He had the expensive car, the downtown apartment, the six-figure job, and most importantly, he knew how to make our parents feel proud. I was different. I drove an old Honda. I wore plain clothes. I didn't talk much about work. And whenever my family asked what I was doing with my life, I usually gave them the same answer. I'm working on a few things. That answer drove my father crazy. One Sunday afternoon, we were having dinner at my parents' house. Daniel had just bought a new BMW, and apparently that was the biggest achievement anyone in the family had ever witnessed. My mother spent 20 minutes talking about it. My father kept asking Daniel questions about the car. Then my aunt looked at me and smiled. "So, Ethan, when are you finally going to get a real job?" Everyone laughed. I forced a smile. "I have a job." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Come on, Ethan, you can't keep pretending those little online projects are a career." My father looked at me. "Your brother is right." I put my fork down. "Actually, I'm doing pretty well." My mother laughed. "Doing pretty well?" She looked around the table. "Ethan, you're 32, you're still driving a 10-year-old car. You live in a tiny apartment and nobody even knows what you do." Daniel smirked. "Maybe because there's nothing to know." That one hurt. But I stayed quiet. Then my father said something I never forgot. "You know what your problem is, Ethan?" I looked at him. "You've always wanted to look important without actually becoming important." The table went silent. I could have defended myself. I could have told them the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I simply said, "Maybe you're right." Daniel laughed. Finally, some self-awareness. Nobody noticed the smile I tried to hide. Because 3 months earlier, I had quietly purchased a controlling stake in the company where Daniel worked. And nobody in my family knew. Not because I wanted revenge. At least not at first. I had started my career in software. I wasn't particularly talented at school, and I definitely wasn't the smartest person in the room. But I was stubborn. I spent years building a small software company with 2 friends. Our first few years were brutal. We slept in offices. We ate cheap takeout. We nearly ran out of money 3 times. Eventually, something changed. Our software became popular with small businesses, then medium-sized businesses. Then a few large corporations started using it. We grew quietly, very quietly. I never posted about it. I never bought a mansion. I never changed my lifestyle. I kept driving the same Honda. And when my family asked what I did, I simply told them I ran a technology company. They never believed me. To them, successful people had expensive watches and luxury cars. So I let them believe whatever they wanted. Until that Sunday dinner. After my father insulted me, I stood up. "I think I'm going to head home." My mother rolled her eyes. Of course you are. Daniel looked at me. Don't worry, little brother, maybe someday you'll make us proud. I stopped at the door. I turned around. You might want to be careful about what you wish for. Daniel laughed. What does that mean? Nothing. Then I left. The next morning, I received an email from my attorney. The subject line said, "Acquisition complete." I opened it. The deal was official. We had acquired 62% of a company called Apex Systems. And Daniel worked there. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then my phone rang. It was my attorney. "Ethan, congratulations, you're officially the majority owner." I smiled. "Thank you." He paused. "There is one thing you should know." "What?" "Your brother is scheduled to attend the leadership meeting tomorrow." I leaned back in my chair. "I know. Are you sure you want to reveal yourself this way?" I thought about the dinner. My mother's laughter. My father's disappointment. Daniel calling me a failure. "No," I said. "I don't want to reveal myself." My attorney sounded confused. "Then what do you want to do?" I smiled. "Let them discover it." The next morning, I walked into Apex Systems wearing jeans, a plain black shirt, and the same old watch I'd been wearing for years. The receptionist looked nervous. "Mr. Carter, the executives are waiting upstairs." I nodded. "Thank you." When I entered the conference room, Daniel was already there. He looked at me. His face changed instantly. "Ethan." I smiled. "Hey, Daniel." He looked around the room. "What are you doing here?" Before I could answer, the CEO stood up. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce you to Ethan Carter." Daniel frowned. The CEO continued. "Mr. Carter is the new majority owner of Apex Systems." Silence. Complete silence. Daniel stared at me. "No." I didn't say anything. He looked at the CEO. "That's my brother." "Yes," the CEO replied. Daniel looked back at me. "You." I nodded. He actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because he couldn't process it. "You own this company." "Part of it." "How much?" The CEO answered for me. 62%. Daniel's face went pale. I could see him remembering every insult he'd ever thrown at me. Every joke. Every time he'd called me a loser. Every time he'd told our parents I was wasting my life. Then the CEO handed me the meeting agenda. I sat at the head of the table. Daniel remained standing. I looked at him. "You can sit down." He slowly took his seat. The meeting continued. I didn't fire Daniel. I didn't embarrass him. I didn't even mention our family. Instead, I announced several changes to the company. New investment. New product development. Employee bonuses. And a completely new leadership structure. When the meeting ended, Daniel stayed behind. "Ethan." I turned around. "What?" He looked uncomfortable. "I didn't know." "I know." I thought. "You thought I was a nobody." He looked down. "I was wrong." I nodded. "Yes, you were." Then he said something unexpected. "I'm sorry." For the first time, I believed him. Not because his apology was perfect. It wasn't. But because his voice wasn't filled with arrogance anymore. It was filled with fear. He was finally looking at me as a person instead of a comparison. That evening, I went back to my parents' house. My mother opened the door. She smiled. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" I wanted to talk. We sat in the living room. My father came in. Daniel had already called them. They knew. My father looked uncomfortable. "So it's true." "Yes. You own Apex." "I own the majority of it." My mother stared at me. "But why didn't you tell us?" I almost laughed. "Would you have believed me?" She didn't answer. My father looked down. Then he said, "We were hard on you." I nodded. "You were. We thought we were pushing you to become better." "No, Dad." I looked directly at him. "You were pushing me to become someone you could brag about." He had nothing to say. I continued. "I didn't hide my success because I was ashamed of it." I paused. "I hid it because I wanted to know whether you'd love me without it." My mother's eyes filled with tears. That sentence changed the entire room. Because suddenly, the money didn't matter. The company didn't matter. The car didn't matter. The titles didn't matter. What mattered was the fact that their son had spent years wondering whether he was only valuable when he could impress them. My father finally stood up. He walked over to me. And for the first time in my entire life, he hugged me. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. I closed my eyes. Those words were something I'd wanted to hear since I was a kid. But strangely, they didn't feel as powerful as I had imagined. Because I'd already learned something important. Your worth doesn't begin when other people finally recognize it. And it doesn't disappear when they don't. A few months later, Daniel changed too. He stopped showing off. He sold the BMW. He started working differently. One afternoon, he came into my office. "I think I understand now," he said. "Understand what?" "You weren't trying to prove anything to us." I smiled. "No. You were trying to prove something to yourself." I nodded. "Maybe." He looked at me. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why didn't you fire me?" I thought about it. "Because humiliating you wouldn't make me better than you." He smiled. "Fair enough." Then he walked away. I sat alone in my office that evening, looking through the glass windows at the city. For years, my family had mistaken silence for weakness. They thought because I didn't show off, I had nothing. Because I didn't brag, I had failed. Because I wasn't loud, I wasn't successful. But sometimes the person sitting quietly at the table isn't losing. Sometimes they're building something you can't see yet. And sometimes the person everyone laughs at today is the person they'll be asking for help tomorrow. I never needed my family to know who I really was. I just needed to know it myself. And that was the one thing they could never take away from me.